I think you want to do it just because you're curious and you want to see the world. Don't collect countries. Go where you want to go and let your curiosity guide you. I mean, we've been to some countries several times when we could have gone to other countries. We've been to different parts of certain countries because in our mind, it was more important and more meaningful to go visit other parts of the same country than go to another country.
Welcome to the Crossing It Off podcast, where we believe living with intention through a bucket list lifestyle is a great way to bring yourself personal joy. As you are crossing items off your list, you're actually filling up your bucket. The more items you cross off, the more joy gets added, until eventually your joy spills over into the lives of those around you. My name is Roger Williams, and as the host of this show, I will be interviewing guests, people just like you that are crossing items off their own bucket list. My hope is that by hearing these stories, you will be inspired and empowered to cross items off your own bucket list. When you find something impactful for your journey, we invite you to share the episode with one other person and leave an honest rating or review of the show. This is an amazing way for you to gift those feelings of inspiration and joy to others. Now let's start crossing it off together. Welcome everybody to this special episode. And I am so excited for my guests, plural. I don't usually have that opportunity to interview two folks at once. So I'm excited that Scott and Emily McKay are here with us. They describe themselves as fun, interesting, curious, and humorous. And I'm excited that they're here. Scott, Emily, welcome.
Thank you for having us here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too. I love the topic we're talking about. I'm a huge fan of bucket lists and travel and everything we've got on the slate today. So I'm excited.
Awesome. So tell our listeners, what is the thing you crossed off your list that we're going to talk about?
Well, me personally, I succeeded at marrying the half Latina version of I Dream a Genie.
There you go. Well, congrats.
Which is an amazing accomplishment, and I highly recommend it. Matter of fact, all you guys out there, if you're single, the way I would screen a woman is to watch an episode of I Dream a Genie with her, and if she's offended, she's not your future wife. That's what I would say. What
was your low bar, Emily?
My low bar?
For Scott.
That's a good question.
Wherever it was, it probably didn't serve the good bourbon.
The bar where you kissed me.
No, I meant just like the standard that you kept.
I know. Yeah. Just kidding.
Awesome. So what is this item you crossed off your list?
Oh, I wanted a guy who had great character and who could appreciate me and who was just genuinely wonderful. And I accomplished that.
And good in bed.
Great in bed.
All right.
Not just good. That would be a low bar, right? I didn't have a low bar.
Nice. I don't even understand the question, frankly. I don't have that in my vocabulary. But Roger, I think obviously what we were all gathering here to discuss is Emily and I having visited enough places globally to qualify to join what's called the Traveler Century Club together.
Okay, so I had never heard of this before I was introduced to you all, so I'm very curious about that. But before we get there, what drove you all individually, like before you got married, to want to have a bucket list or to travel?
Well, for me, my first bucket list was to find a wonderful man and marry him. Check that off. And then I really didn't have anything beyond that, other than children. And we were good at that too.
We take them with us.
Right. But Scott came into the bedroom one day and said, "Hey, I need you to do something for me." I'm like, "What's that?"
Well, we can't talk about that on this show. Oh, you mean that other thing. Okay.
I need you to write a list with about 10 items or 10 places that you want to go. I said, "Okay." And just give it to me. That's it. And
that was
he didn't add anything else. Right. Yeah. That was it. Just write 10 places you want to go to and give it to me, and that's it. So I gave him that list and he took it from there.
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't mind solo travel. I've certainly done it before, but I was kind of embroiled in my previous career and I flew a lot from my previous career. So I compiled a whole lot of frequent flyer miles. I just didn't have anywhere pleasurable to go with them, especially without having met my honey yet. So when I met her, we had a couple 100,000 frequent flyer miles.
Wow.
And she was keen on getting preggers, So I said, well, we better go on a couple trips. And I said, would you rather go on 2 trips flying first class, or would you rather go on a big trip flying first class, or would you rather go on 2 separate trips flying coach? And she indicated the latter, and I knew I'd pick the right woman because I'm totally a cheesecake. Cheesecake? I'm not much of that. I am a cheapskate though.
Okay.
And we're also not very large people, so who needs extra seating room anyway, right? So she indeed put that list together, and I took that list and built a trip, and I just sprung it on her. I said, we're going to go to this place. And she's like, oh, that sounds really great. And we did it. And I'll tell you, though, I have always had a wanderlust mentality. I'm an extremely curious person, and I am just fascinated by things that are different than what I'm used to, seeing other cultures, going places that are where they speak different languages and eat different food. I just have always instinctively known it was going to be different when I had feet on the ground than the way I was told it would be by the media or by travel movies, etc.
For sure.
And I've never been disappointed. And I am practically still to this day addicted to that feeling of seeing something iconic with my own eyes for the first time. It is just the most incredible rush.
And the more the rare it is, the more fun it is.
And there's nothing like going somewhere iconic and being the only people there, which is like 5 times ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was about to say that's a rough thing to do these days with travel. I mean, 20 years ago, you could, climb Machu Picchu and be okay, or walk the Camino and be okay. But nowadays it's very difficult to find those places that you can be not in an Instagram moment, but be in an Instagram moment at the same time.
I hear you. Yeah. It's usually when it's bad weather or extremely, extremely early, right? Before it's even barely opened.
Before it's humanly decent to be awake.
Right. Before all the tourists have rolled out of bed from their hangover.
So when did this Travelers Century Club come into the picture? You started traveling together and experiencing that and finding joy in that. How did you learn about the Travelers Century Club, and what was it about it that you said, we got to do this?
Well, I wanted to go to a whole lot of places, and I had on my bucket list go to 100 countries. And over the course of my internet travels, I figured out there was a club for such people who were that crazy. And it turns out most of them aren't very nice people. They're all very old and very selfish. A lot of them are very douchey about it. So it's kind of like when you go to these meetings, it's the one place in the world where you can let your douchebaggery fly freely, because people won't roll their eyes and go, if you tell me one more travel story that I'll never be able to sniff in my entire existence, but people really get very fed up with you bragging about your travel. So we don't really even talk about it. Our family's sick of it. Nobody wants to hear about it. It just doesn't make you very cool to go around talking about, hey, by the way, I've been to 110 countries.
Oh yeah.
And nobody really even cares, because far fewer people are curious. But the Travelers Century Club bills itself as being the world's hardest club to join.
I can imagine. I mean, when I first looked at it, I was like, wow, this is going to be, a hard thing to accomplish, visiting 100 countries in anyone's lifetime. I spent 3 months last year traveling, and I think I hit 6 in 3 months. So I understand that it's difficult for you all, maybe. But yeah, I think that, when did Emily gravitate towards saying, okay, I'll do this with you?
Well, right away. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times women get a false sense of security when they have a guy who can help them attain it. Like, okay, I have a guy, he'll provide, protect, etc. And not to be, sexist about it, but I just think women feel like I'm not going there by myself.
Yes.
But if he's with me, some reason I feel safe. There are plenty of places we went where there's no way I could possibly have defended us from something catastrophic happening, regardless of my gender. But yeah, Emily was game to do the travel thing pretty early on. And once we started going and realizing it wasn't so fearsome and it was a lot more adventurous and fun and exceeded our expectations, it just kind of it had some momentum attached to it. It was like, well, I've seen this, I've seen that. And we would talk to our friends who had been this place and that place. And it's like, well, I can't leave this earth without ever having gone to that place.
Well, that, and it's like boiling the frog slowly. You
Yeah,
got me
it
started
sure
with the
There you
easy
go.
places to visit. We went to Europe, like Paris and Italy.
Easy ones, yeah.
We went to the easy ones first, and then gradually got more and more challenging to the point where
adventurous.
I'm a little bit of a germaphobe, so it had to be very sterile and very clean. And towards the end of our adventures, I was finally
that was out the window.
I can imagine.
Overcame it. Had to.
Emily, describe the process that you go through together. The first time Scott did this, it was like a surprise. after that, what's your process for the two of you to say, okay, this is next?
Well, for me, I love visiting and I like adventure. I've always been adventurous, but the world travel, in my younger days, I didn't realize was possible.
Mm.
And that's the only thing holding me back. So if I think something's not possible, I don't dare to dream about it. And as long as I know it's possible, I will dream till there's no end. And so when Spot,
Yeah, if the
Cheese-
shoe fits.
Cheesecake Spot.
Like I said, if the shoe fits, whatever.
So when he made it a reality that, hey, yeah, this is possible. We got airline miles. We can do this. And, you want one location or two. I'm like, well, yeah, the more the barrier. I'm in 100%. As long as it's possible, let's do this. And matter of fact, we were on the plane when we were looking online and found another travel place we wanted to go to that was available. And we're trying to order that package while we're on the plane trying to go to our next to this current destination.
We're sick puppies, Roger.
Well,
We really, really are. I mean, yeah, I think we've kind of conquered the addiction a little bit because we've been to all the iconic places, save
Sure.
for very few. And I know that sounds like an eye roller, but I mean, it just kind of happens. I'm not a country collector. I'm not one of these people who has to go to Mauritania and Chad and, the Orkney Islands, or else I'm just not fulfilled. I would rather go to Japan again or to Kenya again, than go to some place that I really don't even understand why we would go. But there are also places that we've been because they've been on the way or it was easy to plan it, in the process of getting to 100, and we're 110-ish now. Some of those are iffy to count, I mean,
yes.
It's like are Wales and Scotland separate from the UK?
Right. It's the old 50 states debate, right? It's like,
right.
if I drove through it, am I okay? If I stopped at the gas station, am I okay? Just being in the airport's not okay. Everyone's got their thing, and so you have to decide what's best for you, and
that's right.
And go with that.
That's right. But some people are such tightwads that like Taiwan doesn't count.
Oh,
stuff.
Yeah.
Galapagos and the Ecuador.
Well, yeah. Well, see, the way the Travelers, and this is boring, so I'll keep it brief. But the way the Travelers Century Club works is what they count as countries are non-contiguous territories. So indeed, the Galapagos would not count as
right.
So
okay.
our number for like Traveler Century Club is more like 135, 140. But I just don't think Alaska and Hawaii are different countries,
right.
Or that Crete counts, or, I just don't,
What does it really mean to be a member of this club? Do you sign up? Do you have to pay dues? How does that work?
Well, you sign up, you pay dues, and they have quarterly meetings, and that's it. It's really just, I've actually gone out to dinner with guys when they turned up in San Antonio. And I think it was Norman Schwarzkopf who said the famous quote, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I remember going out to two guys who were fellow members. And I just had, we were at a chicken wing place and they served a beer. And I said to the guy next to me, I go, well, so how many countries have you been to? And he just shrugged and kind of looked away and said, all of them. I go, well, I mean, help me out with a number there. He goes, like 270. And so the other guy, he was like, yeah, me too.
There was probably some knowledge at that wings table that you could have.
And I was like, gained. This is awesome. I could freely talk about this and not be douchey. And I'll never forget, those two guys sat at the table next to me. And I was just kind of like, stroking my goatee with a furrowed brow, watching them discuss how they both were familiar with the same lady behind the desk who was kind of quirky, who worked at the same hotel both of them had stayed at in Angola. I'm like, great. That's just fascinating. It's a small world, isn't it?
It is a very small world. It can be. Here at the Crossing It Off podcast, we are passionate about inspiring you in your bucket list lifestyle and empowering you to live out your list. We offer many resources to assist you in your bucket list journey, such as web resources in the show notes, bucket list mentoring services, my book Live Out Your Lists, a private Facebook group for you to share your bucket list success stories with others, and more. All of these can be found at crossingitoffpodcast.com. Find the resource that fits your need so that you can live out your list. Now back to the show. I think you,
Yeah.
you can make it a small enough world that you don't experience anything, or you can get out there and experience the broader perspective, and it makes it small. So I'm a big fan of travel. What is one thing from each of you that accomplishing this tasks of doing 100 countries, what was the personal benefit for you, or
Mm.
what was something that you walked away from that knowing more about yourself?
Well, Scott hit that number before I did, one trip sooner. And so I was finally happy to hit that number and finally get to share that experience with him. So I was like, yes, I finally qualified to join with him. That was fulfilling for me. But the other thing was next is, helping the kids acquire that
Mm,
same goal and acquire that same thirst and trying to get them to go to as many places as possible. So we've actually gone back to some of the same places with the children with us this time.
and
Yeah.
how old are they?
Well, they're 14 and 10 now.
Okay.
Yeah, but we took Sarah to India when she was 4 months old. People thought we
Wow.
were nuts, but she wasn't eating the food. See,
Yeah, she didn't have to go through that process, thank goodness.
I have a little bit more philosophical an answer. I mean, I echo everything Emily said. To me, the great thing about having gone to all these countries isn't so much the bragging rights, although it is extremely fulfilling to have seen the world. Anything you do, anything you accomplish, and I mean the royal you, right? Anything that one accomplishes that is an amazing, an amazing experience. No one, the repo man can't come take that from me.
That's right.
Your car is going to rust, shoes wear out, your house could burn down or whatever, but no one can ever take away our experiences. And so we really have gone from, the American dream to us is really kind of a fluid thing.
Mm,
It's not the one that everybody envisions, house in the suburb and a BMW and, 2.3 kids and a dog and a house payment and a job at a cubicle all week long. I really honestly believe in freedom. And we've built a location independent lifestyle that allowed us to really quote unquote work from anywhere, which gives us the ability to leave a lot. But going around the country, around the world, not only do you see a lot and it's very gratifying to see this beautiful world, but meeting the people, experiencing the culture is an incredibly illuminating experience when you come home and watch the media and watch television.
mm,
It also expands your horizon and gets you to think about the bigger picture, like God and country, and even watching the Olympic Games is different after you've been everywhere. And it absolutely kills cultural biases and eliminates racism. I mean, you hear people talk and you hear people say things like, let's turn North Korea into a parking lot, and Iran sucks and this, that, and you just realize, you guys need to go there, at least see who you're talking about and meet the people and eat the food before you listen to what the media said. And again, it sounds elitist to talk like this, but you have to understand also, I mean, to me, it's very humbling to go there and realize, I love America. I do think America is the greatest country in the world, and everybody's whining about America being a horrible place or whatever. Yeah, they need to go visit some places and understand how bad it gets for humanity sometimes. But there are wonderful cultural aspects of what other people in completely different places do that are just unknown to us, that are
mm,
wonderful. And most people are completely oblivious to them happening, and they're not better or worse. They're just different.
right.
And people want to introduce them to you, and they're fantastic and fun. And that to me is the answer to your question.
To add to that, that just reminded me of when we do the travels, we get to see how people react and how they behave. And the one thing I think is really fascinating is you go to some of these places that are poor, impoverished, people are suffering and having a hard time getting through life. But some of these cultures or some of these places we've been to, the people are so happy and they're not suffering from depression and sadness. And so we kind of figure, well, what's different? How can we, enjoy life the way that they enjoy it? And so
it's wonderful to have the kids grow up open-minded and understand that just because someone looks different, eats something different, prays to a different God, doesn't make them better or worse. It makes them interesting.
Yeah, for
You know, my
sure.
kids my kids have had that ingrained into them from an extremely early age, so they haven't had time to get indoctrinated otherwise.
Yeah,
Never
I
happened.
spent 30 days on the Camino de Santiago, and one of the funny things that kept happening was I used to get Eurosplained everything, like, and people would be like, "Well, this is this and this is that." I'm like, I'm an American. I'm not stupid. I know stuff. So it's a reverse thing too, right? It's I can go there and show that not everybody is so close-minded, and that we do know that the rest of the world exists. So I felt like part of my job was to be like, "Hey, Americans are cool too." So we can all coexist. It's good.
A couple of things come to mind right when you said that. First of all, we were talking about the hardest club in the world to join, and you mentioned being stupid. I think Mensa would be harder to join if you're stupid.
Mm,
From the hunt, yeah, that just is something that came to mind. The other thing is, you go places and you realize people don't really hate Americans. They may not like who our leader is,
right.
and that goes in both directions. You go to a place and realize the people aren't their government; they're still
Mm,
humans, and we all really should just want to get along, and we generally do.
I like
But
that.
it's American people's vision of America. They'll joke about how loud we are and how arrogant we are, but I think people tend to kind of have a pleasant representation of Americans as people. That a lot of it comes from Hollywood. A lot of the guys think all the women are kind of Baywatch chicks,
Right.
and that does happen.
Oh yeah, it happens. I ran into a bunch of Italian kids, and they all wanted to come to America, and I'm like, I don't, because of the women, and I'm like looking around, I'm like, um, your women are just fine.
Italian women are
you
just
know,
fine,
I
sure,
mean,
yeah,
I don't understand what your need is, but
you
okay.
bet.
So yeah, for sure. In the time we have remaining, what is something you would say to somebody if they said, "Well, that Century Travel Club seems like an interesting idea. I'd like to visit 100 countries." What's the piece of advice that each of you would give them if they said they wanted to cross that off their list?
I would not make joining the club the bucket list, and it wasn't
Mm,
for us either. It's just kind of a neat little feature that you get to literally carry the card that says you've done it. I think you want to do it just because you're curious and you want to see the world. Don't collect countries. Go where you want to go and let your curiosity guide you. I mean, we've been to some countries several times when we could have gone to other countries. We've been to different parts of certain countries because in our mind it was more important and more meaningful to go visit other parts of the same country than go to another country. A great example of that would be, we went to China. First time we went to Beijing, Hong Kong, Macau. Second time we went to Shanghai and
mm,
Chengdu. Third time we went to China, we went to Xi'an and took the Trans-Mongolian Railway up through the north of China. So
very nice.
China has so many more interesting things to see within one great country. And again, we don't like the politics, but the country sure is gorgeous and amazing and so absolutely unlike America that it's just can't be fascinating. And we went there instead of say some obscure place just simply to go and put foot to ground and go, well, we can cross that one off. And I think we're better. That was a better experience. That was the right thing to do.
Emily, what about you?
I think for me, a lot of it had to do with what we wanted to accomplish, not so much as location as it was activities.
Mm,
Yes.
Walking the plank road.
Yeah.
That's
The
the
plank road in the sky.
right.
mhm.
That was an activity. Or jumping in the Devil's Pool, where it's right there by Victoria Falls. You jump in, and the falls is right there, but you don't fall off into the falls.
We see stuff on YouTube and go, dude, we got to do this. Got to do that. And then we build the trip around. And we also watch people on TV and Anthony Bourdain and was it Michael Wood or David Wood? The guy who does Michael Wood does the story of India. We planned our Indian trip around that documentary series.
Mm,
It was just so amazing. And we didn't get steered wrong. So I
awesome.
mean, we get influenced because everybody gets influenced in some way. But one of the things you asked before is, I think Emily answered it differently than I would have, but it was, how do you decide what to do next? Some of it is seasonal, some of it is the strength of the dollar, some of it is what flights are available. But usually we hop around to different cultural regions. Like we decide we haven't been to Asia in a while. Okay, next trip won't be back to Asia, although we've done that. It'll be to South America. And then we miss Europe. And then we want to go to Sub-Saharan Africa. And then what we do is we build at this point 4 or 5 week trips around something that holds together and the flights make sense, and we can see a lot while still enjoying it. I'm not one of those travel snobs that says like, well, if I only had 30 days in Moldova, I would find it hard to fit in everything. Yeah, well, whatever. We went to Moldova for a day and a half and we felt good about having seen Moldova.
There you go. Yeah, I spent 2 months in Italy and I spent 10 hours in Rome total. And I spent the other 2 months in Trieste and Matera. And I walked 10 miles that day, I think, through Rome, took the selfies and walked on, because everybody back home was expecting you're going to Italy, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And I had friends to see and new places to visit. I wasn't necessarily totally into doing what everybody else always says you have to do. So
you can meet a whole lot of locals and get immersed in a whole lot of local culture in 72 hours. You really can, as long as you're not lazy. And I'm just one of those people. I can feel fatigued and dragged out and overworked at home. I get somewhere and I've got boundless childlike energy the whole 30 days when we're somewhere else, magically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is the next thing on your list to cross off?
Well, we have Japan planned, and that's, Scott and I have been there a few times, but the children have it. And each time we keep asking, where's our next trip? And that's the only one that will come out of their mouths.
The kids want to go to Japan with
cool
passion. And I want to show them Japan with a passion.
We've been waiting for it to open up.
I think it just did, didn't it?
Yes, it finally.
COVID test is all you need. So boom.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've been trying to convince them, okay, while it was closed, they're like, let's pick someplace else. So like, no, Japan. So
nice.
I guess Japan it is.
Well, they're probably going to go to South America too very soon, whether they like it or not. But they'll, they're just kids. They'll go, wow, Dad, this really is cool. You were right. It's like, yeah, I told you.
Yeah, no doubt. Scott, Emily, let people know where we can find you on the internet to follow your travels or whatever else you have going on.
If you want to talk travel, we have a cool web blog website and a podcast associated with it at wingitworldwide.com. But our bread is buttered by being dating and relationship coaches. We talked about being location independent. That's what we've been doing for 16 years together. And anybody who wants to learn more, maybe listen to a podcast for men or read my first book, which was called Deserve What You Want, which talks about ways you can just be better in your relationships, whether you're a man or a woman right now. Go to ScotMcKay.net, 1T, ScotMcKay.net. The Mountaintop Podcast is for men mostly, but I do host every 10th show with Emily, and that goes onto another feed for another podcast called X and Y on the Fly, which was actually our first. So all that's just long for whether you're a man or a woman. We'd love to hear from you, whether it's travel related or dating and relationship stuff. Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's an awesome one, and I know it will affect a lot of people. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.